And all right, so hello everyone. This is the Global Virtual Design Sprint Showcase, or GVDS Showcase. I believe this is session number 13 that we're doing. And this time we're with Team Shortcut, as they're going to go over the healthy digital lifestyle for children, I believe is the one we're doing today. I'm going to be your host. My name is Robert Strobe, over here in the United States. And I'll have to apologize to everyone. I'm working with very tired brain. So for posterity, I'll try to be as short and concise as I can as we kind of introduce everyone and go through the process. So for those watching on YouTube, and also for those who do on-demand watching through Zoom, this presentation is going to be in 3 sections. The first is we'll make introductions and let everyone know who's on the team and who they are and what they do. Second part, we'll be going through the challenge and what the team did to address the. I'll try to be as short. Oh, I got a little bit of feedback there. So basically address the challenge and how they went about going about finding a solution. And then the final part of it will be kind of going over the solution itself and taking a look at what what they came up with in terms of a prototype, their approach to going after how they went about their approach to building it, and what the end result was. And then finally, we'll take time for Q&A and to reflect on what the team felt about the sprint as well as the entire event. If you do have any questions, feel free to put those into YouTube in the chat window there. We'll be monitoring it, as well as Zoom, and we'll get to those towards the end of the session. All right. So I guess without further ado, we'll get right into it. Jerome, you're currently sharing your screen. Why don't you start with giving introductions, and then we can kind of fall from there. For those people that are on the team that aren't here as part of the presentation, you can also introduce them in terms of your impressions of what they did and their contributions. How does that sound?
Okay, thank you, Robert. Thank you for kicking it off, and welcome to all viewers and listeners around the world. Let me first introduce myself, Jeroen Frumeau. I'm the founder of Talents for You and Frank and the Navigator, here based in the Netherlands, a recruitment business, and the other one is a consultant coaching business. I'm a fanatic GVDS participant, participated in April of this year in the first round for myself. Got so hooked up and passionate about it that I'm developing new business based on the GVDS model, and that's called the Talent Sprint, that we featured on some of the GVDS sprints this month. But in this specific design sprint, I really participated as a participant and tried not to do other things than just enjoy myself and learn a lot from others. In this sense, so that was my role in this one. And before I introduce the non-present members in this call, I first would like yours to give the opportunity to introduce himself a little bit and why he participated in this event as well. Yours.
All right, thank you, Jeroen, and welcome everybody. I'm Joris, I'm 26. I'm living in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I have a commercial background. I've got a master's degree in innovation management. And currently I'm working on a social startup, which I really enjoy doing. What I also enjoy is participating in hackathons. And that's where I got to know about design thinking, design sprints. And I'm getting a real enthusiast about it. So that's why I participate in the GVDS. And I'm happy to be here.
If I can ask you a question real fast. Whoa, does that go? How does this experience compare to a hackathon?
Yeah, so the hackathons I participated in were also design sprint inspired. Mm-hmm. So that is like a similarity. And I would say, like I participated in hackathons from 3 days or from a week. And I would compare this GVDS with a hackathon of like 2-3 days, because people combine it with a full-time job. And of course, you have the online element. Yeah, the work you can get done is similar, and I was amazed by what you can do online. Yeah, but the interaction is different online, of course, than in a room where you all together around the post-its. But Mural did a good job.
Okay. Thank you for just clarifying that. I was just curious. So sorry, Jerome, go ahead. As you were.
No, you were not stopping me as such.
Okay.
Let me just briefly introduce the other members of this team. First person that I would like to emphasize is Nora Scully, based in North America. So she was really challenged by time zone differences, getting up or staying up late to work with the majority of the team that was based in Europe. But she did a great job in that. To my understanding, it was for her as a creative facilitator the first time that she was really participating in a design sprint of this nature, as well as in the virtual space. So it was for her a learning journey as well. So it was nice working with her, but also as an advisor, coaching her a little bit in the journey, seeing her also participate in parallel in other design sprints, carrying forward all the learnings that she had from this team and coming back again into this team with the learnings from the other team. So I was real pleasant working with her in that case. Izoya is based in Spain, a design sprint facilitator, together with Mercedes, who's on the right of her as well. They work a lot in creative meetups, design sprint meetups, and serving customers, sometimes working remotely, but more and more in person, and really starting up that practice out of Spain. Also a mother, taking care of her family at the same time while sprinting with us, which was a nice let's say, experience as well to see that happening. And that's the beauty of the Global Virtual Design Sprint. You can balance your investments and your time in a different way than what you otherwise would do during office hours working with your team. She also took ownership for the majority of the user testing that we will run into in a later stage. That was also very well prepared by Joris himself. Mercedes Gomez, also based in Spain, working together with Izoya on design facilitating as a design UX researcher. Great person, highly creative skills, and took a lot of effort in the team also in designing the storyboard into a working prototype and the communication around us. So highly appreciated for that. Extremely busy lady in her work and in all the things that she does. So she had to balance her availability around it, but she did a great job as such. Van Glee, working as a junior UX designer at Kaiser X Labs in, I think it's Frankfurt at the moment, part of the Allianz organization. Really wanted to experience what it is to design sprint in the virtual space. Their organization is doing design sprints at all in the organization as part of their innovation and UX service design activities. But having more and more colleagues spread around Germany and the Allianz organization around the globe, it's a really learning opportunity for them to understand how the digital space actually also can help them to really bring this alive in a more virtual context. She really helped also to scope the journey that we did in the beginning, frame it, and make it relevant for the stakeholders that we addressed in terms of the digital healthy lifestyle for children. Last one, Jean-Michel Legrand, based in, I think, Geneva, Switzerland, lead and agile coach, done different ways in different contexts, working with agile working methodologies, and was really keen on learning much more about design sprinting in the virtual space. Critical thinker, which was lovely to experience, and together with Nora, took a lot of the preparations and the facilitation on him to make sure that this team delivered towards the end. So Jean-Michel, thank you for that, and thank you for contributing.
Great, that was a wonderful summary. So let's get into the big idea, the challenge that the team took on. Jerome,
yes, I will elaborate on that.
Sounds good.
Jerome, if you can bring it into the picture. So we focused on the healthy digital lifestyle for children, and we all felt very drawn to this topic because nowadays we live in a digital world. Like everybody's wearing a smartphone. We use laptops, iPads. We have everywhere an internet connection. So digital is everywhere, and the children nowadays, they grow up in this digital environment. And as some of the participants of this design sprint are parents as well, we all felt it's very important that children are raised in a very like a balanced way with this digital environment. So we started to work on it with full of enthusiasm. And we started with doing the interviews, the expert interviews. And we did two types of things. The first thing was we are still more to the problem statement, Jeroen. So we interviewed an expert in this field. So she was the director of an association that focuses on digital screens, digital media, and children. So we interviewed her, and of course we interviewed parents, because parents are the big experts and they experience it the most, like how children use the devices. And in the interviews, we had a few main insights where we focused on. The first is why people use the screens. And we noticed that it's mainly used to quiet the house down. So to make them relax ambience in the house. Secondly, we saw parents mislead by example. So the children are playing or they want to play with their parents. But parents, they also look on their phone on the same time, and children see this and they copy this in the future. So this example role of parents was very big. And what we noticed and what was very important to us all is that it can interfere between children and parents. So it can harm the relationship. So we really want to prevent that phones are in the way between parents and children. We want to have deep, nice relationships. So that brought us the problem statements. And that was, parents are experienced, they mislead by example when they are home as a family. It's important to solve this because it's essential that parents and their kids spend quality time together. So that was the problem statement we focused on, and where we started with to continue the sprint journey. So at this point, we started the journey. What was nice to see from the team that there was a lot of commitment, like almost all members were present in this phase. Nora had to get up at 5 o'clock one morning to be present as well. So
I can feel her pain right now.
Yeah, like you, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you for that. It's great to see this commitment in the GVDS. So we formulated a few questions, a few hurdles that we experienced, like when we can overcome these questions, these sprint questions, then we will have a nice solution that can be beneficial for the problem statement. So the first question was, or the how might we question, of course, that the how might we question that we formulated. How might we increase activities between parents and kids instead TV device exposure? So that's also what came from the interview. So we need to get alternatives for the screens to get some relaxation. And the supporting question, How might we stop parents using their phone in the presence of their child? So to answer that question, we can really tackle the misleading part. The sprint questions we focused on. Firstly, can we motivate parents to turn off devices and spend time with their children? Secondly, can we get an idea to relax parents and children together without screens? And thirdly, can we demonstrate how relaxing without screens look like? And when we can really address these questions, we can get closer to our future goal, which was very ambitious, I remember. In 2 years' time, that was our goal. In 2 years' time, children and parents don't need screens to relax anymore. And so I think in this sentence, the word need is very important. So of course, it's fine to use screens. And we also agreed on that as a team, that we also have to embrace the future, like this digital world and all the possibilities it has. It also has a lot of benefits, but we don't want to be dependent on it. So when you want to quiet the house down or you want to relax with the family, sometimes it could be nice to use a screen, but you shouldn't need a screen. You shouldn't be dependent on it. We like children and parents to have a lot of alternatives as well, so that we are in control of the screens and they're not in control of us. So that was a nice goal to work on. And then the fun creative part started, the brainstorming, right? I can give the word to you, Jeroen, to explain the solution sketch we made.
Okay, thank you very much. Just like in the total design sprint process, I think it's on day number 3, if I'm correctly, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
But it's really about designing towards a possible solution. And of course, after having seen inspiration from outside in, other examples that, let's say, touch upon the sprint questions that we had and on the long-term goal. I think during a full day, the people offline did this sketching. So they came up with different solutions that were addressing the sprint questions, inspired by the sprint questions, and of course also by the long-term goal. And they varied from almost how to make visible to parents that they are using their mobile devices and therefore giving the wrong example to their children. By the way, there were great commercials already out there in the world by telephone companies, one that yours helped to spot as well, that demonstrated how children perceive their parents when they are on their screens, and that really inspired us as well. So feel free to have a look around for that. But also, is it really about the screen and the screen use, or can you actually stimulate members of the family to start behaving differently when they are together, or how to inspire them to do it differently? So one of the solution sketches that came out is here on screen, and that's the one that we prototyped further into as part of this design sprint, which I will explain in a second as well. But I hope I can bring it on the screen in a proper way, or maybe I can zoom it in as well here. Let's see whether the zoom works. No, it doesn't work. Well, at least the thing is how can we create a reality where if you come home, children come home, parents come home, that they're being stimulated immediately to almost say, well, now it's family time and it's not about screen time. So when you arrive in the hallway of your house, of your apartment, there's something hanging on the wall where you have, one, the opportunity to dock your mobile phone, store it away almost, and discuss opportunities for having quality time together. So how can you stimulate a family to have quality time without having that mobile phone in their hand or the screen glued to their face or being distracted, or delegate your children to a screen so that you can do the cooking as parents, as an example. So what you see here is that wall-mounted reality where you say, okay, I can dock my device, I get some feedback on the docking station, that you're doing a good step for the family. Above the docking station, there are cards or suggestions about what the family could do today when they're coming home. Are we going to cook together? Are we going to play a game together? Are we going to draw? Are there other suggestions? While your mobile phone is stored away on that wall-mounted device. And the idea was, from a solution point of view, is that there's a reward for doing things differently from now onwards. So if you spend your quality time together, you have been eating together, cooking together, you actually have rich conversations as a family around the table. Maybe you did gameplay together. That the reward at that moment is that your mobile phone is fully charged after that activity. So it's a small token of appreciation. Say, okay, well, you also don't have to worry about using your mobile device later tonight or in this afternoon. It's fully charged. So there's also a kind of a carrot in here to say how to change the behavior of people. So this was the outline of the idea. And of course, then you also have the challenge, how are we going to prototype this? Are we going to make something physical? Are we really going to make that wall-mounted device and stimulate people to put their phone away and do something else? Or are we going to prototype something else? Are we going to prototype change behavior, or in that sense? So there was a conversation also around the storyboarding that we did and the mapping of the activities in terms of what are we going to do now? How are we going to bring this idea to life? And it was testing in the end. We felt, are we able to test if parents and children, but parents predominantly, are they willing to put that device away for a certain period of time? And yours will further explain the prototype that we developed as such. But yeah, so let's first explain the prototype before we also demonstrate how we're trying to create traffic around this idea and to attract people to test it. We will do that in a later stage. So maybe it's good first, yours, that you explain the prototype that we have developed and take it from there. Do you want to use your own screen for that, or can you use it like this?
I'll use my own screen, yes. Then I can show it in Envision what we made.
Okay, then I'll stop sharing now and you can start sharing.
All right. So here you see the landing page actually that we made as a prototype. This is our prototype consists of two parts. So this is the first part of it. So we've sent this landing page to people to further explain the wall. With as a title, Quality Time Protector. It was a little joke, like for your phone, you use a screen protector, but we don't want to protect the phone, we want to protect quality time of a family. So are you willing to spend some quality time with your children? Then you are the person we need to join a unique experiment. You can scroll down here. It's called The Wall Full of Reward. We made a Christmas edition from it. So you can place it above the fireplace. You can place your phone there, and you also recognize the place where you can put the activities. Mercher made these drawings. Very good job, Mercher. So when people place this wall above the fireplace and put their phone on it, and they can write down activities. So people, you thought about cards like play Lego. It's like you put a post-it on it, or you write it down, cooking pizza. Or children where they cannot write yet, they can make a little drawing of an activity that they like to do. Also to start a conversation in the family. So not choosing for the easiest option, like turning on the TV, but have a conversation with the family, what activity to do. And then it's time. So this family picked cooking as an activity. So they're making nice pizza together. So we use this to make people, to show them the concept. But there was not everything, because we thought, okay, what's the next step? What are we going to do? Like making a physical wall of reward would be quite time consuming, and we couldn't spread it out digitally. So we brainstormed a little bit together, and we came with a more social experiment, which is a PDF they can download themselves. I'll show you that one as well. It's this PDF, and people could print it at home and use it to as the wall of reward. So as you can see, we have this same fields. You also have on the top room for writing down activities together, what you like to do, and you can put your devices on the PDF. And that's also an important aspect of the prototype, that you physically put your phone away, and also the children see, okay, daddy puts his phone away, it's quality time, it's time to play. So it's a nice gesture, like full focus on the relationship and on playing together. And of course, afterwards, we are very curious to hear from people, like how did they experience it? How tough was it to put your phone away? How was the quality time? Did you feel disturbed? We want to know a lot of them, which resulted in useful customer feedback. Yeah, that was it about the prototyping part. Shall I give the word back to you, Jeroen, or do you like to add something?
No, thank you very much, Joris. I think what we try to express here is that we were more prototyping a different experience. Let's say more a social experiment to get parents that far that they would be willing to put their phone away on this piece of paper and not touch it for an hour and a half, while they were cooking a meal and the children were helping, or having a roundtable conversation about how was your day at school, or maybe making a drawing together with your young toddler, as one of the parents did in the user testing, as we just explained. So yeah, thank you for that. So we try to explain our concept instead of prototyping a tool, a solution in that sense. And we made it easy accessible by just downloading a PDF file and printing it yourself. So the only thing people needed was to print it and make time for this available. Of course, going into the user testing, it was also about recruiting people, and it's always a challenge to have the right target audience. And we thought, of course, there are enough parents in this world that are struggling with the concept of screen time for their children, and maybe also feeling sometimes guilty for having their own screen always on the table. So let me share back now my screen and what we've done. If you can stop your screen sharing, thank you. We create a little teaser actually that we used in the recruitment on LinkedIn, I think on Facebook, and as well as in the Slack community that we have as a GVDS community. And I just briefly want to show you that 30-second video, because it was about persuading people to protect their quality time and see whether they would be interested to participate in this experiment. I hope that the sound comes through. It's not the most critical thing, but I assume that you are all able to see the video on screen at the moment. Can you confirm that, Joris?
I can see the video.
Yeah, I can hear it too.
So it was a short teaser, more to make people aware of protecting your screen is very obvious. You put a screen protector on it, the cracks in it hamper, let's say, joy of using your online time on a screen. But what if you would now translate that into your family time? Do you spend as much time, effort on creating that rich experience? Everybody will say they do great. We sometimes all feel that we're failing. So it was a little bit to provoke that that reality. So that's what we used to introduce the concept, but also to attract people for the user testing that we've done. And it is not that we have enormous, let's say, people waiting to user test, but we found several people in the GVDS community and outside to do this with us, which actually creates some interesting insights and experiences. So let me share a few of them, and maybe it's wiser to start on the negative side so that we can end with a highlight on the positive side. So a few of the negative statements is that some of the people did not fully understand the experiment in itself. And that was challenged because we prepared it in English. And when we started to test this, there were people in India, Pakistan, and also in other geographies that wanted to participate in this. And they had difficulty explaining it to the children in their family that were involved in there. Of course, they helped as interpreters, but it realizes that in an experiment like this, you sometimes have to culturally translate, or sometimes even language translate, the prototype that you have if you want to test a concept in the right society, cultural reality. So that's one. Others said, yeah, but what's our problem? We already play with our kids and we don't do that with the phones. So we don't see really the need for a solution like this. And that again makes yourself realize in the user testing that you also have to target it at the right audience. So if you want to user test a concept like this, or even do the social experiment like this, do it with people, with target audiences that actually are seeing it as a struggle, that are worried about the screen time their family is spending, or maybe the disconnect between the children and the parents at certain stages in their, let's say, growing up life. So that's the learning that we had. That doesn't mean we couldn't test, but let's say some of the negatives that we had. Maybe some positive statements. One of the users that we interviewed used her toddler in this process. So she said, I have 2 children and I use my toddler in this to see how I can enhance the quality time and not only make it screen-based. And the whole experiment was for her not putting the phone away, but how to have a conversation with her 3-4-year-old about what shall we do next. So she started to brainstorm using Post-its and stickies around this piece of paper where the phone was put on, in terms of what shall we do today. And the child, the toddler itself, really loved that experiment, that exercise of talking to her mother in a visual way about, let's discuss what we do next. And she started to actually repeat this for a couple of days in a row. So whether it was about screen time or not, stimulating a parent to have a different type of conversation with a toddler, what shall we do next together as quality time, was a really nice insight for her. And she decided to repeat this experiment for a couple of days in a row. Others really liked the idea of making it very visible, putting the phone away. Although there were test users that already had a table or a desk somewhere where the chargers were all lined up in the sockets. And therefore, if you wanted to charge your phone, that's where you put your phone away as a family member. And sometimes there were 4 phones in that corner. Making it very explicit to invest in your family quality time, that for that you have to put your phone or your screen away, was really appreciated by some of the test users. So that was a nice, let's say, feedback that we got. So there is the willingness to do things different and making a very explicit process. And purely the awareness process, by having the conversation with people, by inviting them for an experiment like this, to see whether they were able to change their behavior. It's about the first step, creating awareness that maybe you are on your phone too much. And you can do that with a screen overlay by saying, hey, are you still on your phone? Or what Apple is doing nowadays, feeding you back your on-screen time, for instance, on your mobile phone every day. Maybe that's part of the awareness process. But apparently we triggered people in thinking about, what am I doing? So that was also some of the feedback that came out of here. Some of the insights. In the end, it showed that it was not the charging station that was most appealing to the people, but that this solution could potentially provide them suggestions for spending time with their children in a different way. So they were looking for also receiving suggestions, which made us think about, okay, the experiment is not only helping them to put the phone away, but maybe we need to think about how can we inspire children and parents about how to spend their time differently. So maybe if you have teenage kids, those suggestions might be different, and you can have that conversation in a different way than if you work with toddlers. So maybe we need to have generation cards, generation suggestions. So how can the concept be enriched by having generation specific, age specific, cue time suggestions, and then almost in a gamified way, support the family in making choices. And there were other stakeholders that said, well, I really had resistance in putting my phone away because really I wanted continuously check. We all know that feeling, is that detox mode that you get into. But apparently also the experiment showcased that people need to, let's say, have difficulty putting the phone away. Still having the sounds on were distracting in the event. So it's also important that you put your phone on silent, so not that the SMS and the WhatsApp messages keep beeping in the background. It's distracting. Or what someone else said, this really solution fulfills two needs: the phone disturbance, which is taken away, and quality time. So it's and detoxing from phone use and disturbance continuously, as well as investing more time. Of course, there was the question, do I really need a fixed mounted wall somewhere in my house to make this happen? Can't this be done differently? Good question, good insight. I think the informal statement was a little bit more in time. The phone is not so much a disturbance factor for me, but I like the idea that it gave me extra family time. So it was not about the cracks in the family time caused by the phone, but really stimulating people to behave differently and invest time in their family. Just like the movie clip just showed, are you afraid of the cracks in your family time, in the quality time? Creating more family time is maybe the real benefit in this. Joris, anything that I missed that you wanted to add?
No, you're missing nothing. Well explained. You're on mute, Jeroen.
Maybe Robert, from your perspective as an outside stakeholder in this, any questions or insights that you have on how we approached it, how we made it tangible and tested it?
No, I don't have any statements or observations. I do recall that someone, I believe that you worked with on this, or that you tested with, has actually adopted this solution as part of their interaction with their toddler.
Yeah,
which is really interesting. That's they not only were they bought into it wholesale from the get in terms of like what you showcased in user testing, but it's actually being done in real life by someone.
Yeah, correct. If we then look at the sprint questions again, that we try to answer, of course, with this, we also did that retrospective after the user testing, and we asked ourselves, did the prototype actually answer our sprint questions? And of course, with a full team, there are people very positive and negative. In the end, I think the relation was, let's say the conclusion was that we were not sure. We tested elements, and of course, you could say we had the original sprint questions. Did it create insights? So were parents willing to put their phone away? Are people concerned about the quality time that they lack maybe with the family? I think it really created some insights. If you say, was it a successful prototype to the full extent? Of course, that's a different question. And that starts also to impact how people answer to these validation questions. Did the prototype answer the question? Not fully sure, but it created great insights. Will the prototype properly address the long-term goal? In other words, don't we need the screens anymore in the future? Again, here, the prototype was not proving that. Are people to step away from the screen for a brief moment, and as a benefit have great quality time together and a charged phone after that activity? I think there were some signs that people were willing to do that, but I think they focused more on the quality time than on the mobile device that was put away. Again, here, I think a long learning. Did you think we addressed the challenge, the original design challenge that we took as a time? So can we impact, let's say, the lifestyle of children, the digital lifestyle of children, and in that sense also the impact, or let's say the role of the parents in that? It's all started with that original challenge that we embraced as a team in the LDJ already 2 weeks prior to this whole design journey. And there the team was in full agreement. Yes, we touched upon that. We embraced that topic and we really explored it in depth with the conversations, with the ideation, with the prototypes, with the user testing. We really, let's say, felt that we were addressing that topic. And that almost completed the full design sprint exercise that we've done as a team over a period of, I think, 2 weeks in total, if you add on all the sprint user testing as well. Maybe to share some highlights, yours. The team has also fed back, at least a few people of the team, let's say, how I experienced that. Maybe you want to start yourself. How did you experience this design sprint, this global virtual design sprint, or maybe the event as a whole, from your perspective? It's something you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I really experienced the GVDS as a big happening, like a lot of people involved. Already weeks before the GVDS, like people were very active on the Slack channel and everybody was sharing things on the Slack channel. And it's great to see all those design related professionals together. And I also wrote down, like, it was great to see that many of us showed up in the group calls. We spent a lot of quality time together. So I really felt this commitment and this contribution of everyone to make it a success. And like doing such a thing together was great.
Maybe you also want to take the perspective of Merche.
Yeah, I had contact with her last night. She wanted to join, but she was traveling. So she said, please share my highlight. And she said it was great, create awareness about the use of devices and to try to change for a healthier habit. And as an addition, she also gave some feedback about the GVDS, and she said it was great with working with us, and to that she liked the relationship she gained.
Okay, nice to hear. Maybe from my perspective, I've participated now, I think, in 5 or 6 design sprints, virtual design sprints since April, and some other type of activities. And I experienced very often that the prototyping of the concept was very often an app, a website, or another digital solution. Of course, working digitally together, remotely together with using all those tools, that was very often a very obvious step. But I was really curious to see whether there would be a team that I was participating in was also willing to make that step to more create a social experiment as a prototype and see how that would resonate and bring insights to the table. So I really enjoyed actually working with this team and saying it's maybe not about that mounted wall that we have or an app that we created. Of course, we were communicating in a digital way to our stakeholders they wanted to test with, but in the end, it was trying to see whether we could change behavior. And I think I really enjoyed that as an experiment in itself. See if a global virtual design sprint or a virtual design sprint could actually do that. Besides working again with inspiring new people in this team, some of them I knew from before, others were totally new to me. It's amazing to see how the team spirit actually kicks in when the prototype comes alive and everybody gets enthusiastic about bringing it, let's say, to the finish line of a design sprint like this. So I appreciate that as well.
In a way, it's interesting to see how this particular approach to prototyping where it's a combination of showcasing the concept as well as the prototype itself, tends to produce dialogue from user testing that's more natural. Whereas if you try to go strictly with the traditional design sprint methodology of creating a prototype that's somewhat finished or pretty much like real as it can get, I think if you were intent on launching this as a real product, that may align with that properly. But I think your approach that the team took to showcase your work probably elicited better results and probably had a more constructive, objectively, I would say, and this is my own bias, a more constructive dialogue around what you had done and which direction you were going. So it's really interesting, and probably even changed my disposition around how finished things need to look. If the idea is to kind of validate or invalidate the approach as well as the potential prototype, meaning that the more unfinished it could be, the more dialogue you probably could elicit from the people that you were going to be interviewing. I mean, what do you think of that?
Well, something that I wanted to add to that is what I experience a lot in other virtual design sprints is that once you start into the prototyping exercise and doing in the user testing side, many users actually didn't fully grasp the idea behind it or what you're actually trying to achieve with the prototype or what it's all about. They see an interface, they see a website. And very often the introduction towards that solution hampers sometimes the understanding of the user in why actually is this now tested with me. And I think what we try to do here is much more have that conversation about quality time, change behavior, and more testing the thinking of this concept than the solution in itself. And that's what I enjoyed. And I think we brought it alive to some extent, successfully or not, I do not know, but you've seen more sprints than I do. So I welcome your perspective that you just gave on that. Joris, you have an additional perspective on that?
Yes. Yeah, so I think it's very dependent on the challenge as well. I think our prototype, as you say, Robert, was maybe still very broad, explorative, more explorative than defining and validating. And it's a complex challenge we're taking on because you want to change behavior of people. I think it's quite a long road to create a solution that people would buy. So I think in this phase, it would be most beneficial and most insightful to keep it open and to start the dialogues and to get some real deep, good insights.
I agree. I think there's an element of storytelling that's fundamental to this that needs to be out in the forefront. And then the validation of the different dimensions of it, whether it's the long-term aspect of it, the goals that you're intending to try to meet by doing the prototype. I think that there's a constructed dialogue around that, and it's less of the emphasis about a finished product. I think it probably is. There's more learnings that can come from that for the team to digest and to kind of take in.
Okay.
Right. So we've got a few minutes left, and I'm looking both on Zoom as well as YouTube, and it looks like the people are so fascinated and amazed at what was being presented that they didn't have any questions. They're still trying to grasp the amazing prototype work that the team had done. So maybe with the last few minutes, I'll take inspiration with what Sandy did in a previous session, where if you were to briefly in 20 words or less describe the experience and the virtual sprint that you were on, how would you explain that to somebody else?
Joris, go ahead.
Yeah, what I feel like sharing first is that what I really enjoyed is that, like, I'm in the starting phase of my career, and in work I look for people that don't work to just to pay the bills, but to do something nice for for the world, to create something, to do something where you feel passionate about. And I feel this a lot around the GVDS. People are in there with this intention. So that's something I loved about it, and I also share with other people.
Do you think the concept of social good is central to what the GVDS is all about?
Actually, good question, because I also thought like it would be great if we would do a challenge for a company and we get paid for it. But I'm not sure if how that would change everything. I also really like the idyllic and the social aspect of it.
I think it could live as a separate product, or it could live as a separate service that's different from, fundamentally different from this, where it's like, if you want a different engagement with this type of process, but still want to be able to utilize some of the people that have gone through this and have experience with it, then that's a different discussion, but it's on a different platform. So you don't try to cross the stream, so to speak. But there is interest by some companies to do this. That was generated out of this particular event. It's going to be a question of going back to people that have been through this process many times, like Sandy, Heron, Sabrina, and others, and present the information and the concept and see what their opinions are. But basically figuring out if there's something that could be offered in the April timeframe to go, if you want to take advantage and really leverage the people that are behind an event like this and bring them into a real kind of project for them to work on based on what they see qualitatively that they do, then start the conversation and see what happens. But my initial thought is that I attempted to blend that in April and it didn't seem to really gel, and I did a little bit this time around, and it was also wasn't it wasn't taken well. Like there was, the perception wasn't quite right. So my instinct, or at least from where I may be going with it, is that I'll keep them separate, but make them as viable options for people.
Yeah, one addition. What I also noticed in the group, like the learning and training element was also very big.
Yes.
So that's also what I liked. It felt like also like a safe environment to learn more about digital design sprints and to just to try out things. And that aspect is a little bit a danger when you do it for a company and you want the results and in that setting.
Yeah, they want to return on investment, but they also want to be able to say that you're solving their pain or addressing their issue. So it's a completely different focus, I would say. Yep, I agree with you.
And maybe for an NGO would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I want to add to that, I think over and over, and of course, there's always different people with different minds and different ambitions in a team like this. But I think not just only in this team, but I think in all the teams that I've participated in, it is interesting to see that the personal commitment is driven by the drive to learn and to network. So on one hand, develop new relationships in this community and really drive your community to the next level this way. So I think that's one element. And the other one is to learn by experiment and do it yourself and doing it with others. And I see that in other teams, and I've seen that here as well. People that are insecure at the beginning of the process, even if it's in the facilitation role, it's fine. You're in a trusted environment. We all know this. We're all here for the same. There's only little people that are here say, I want to get a commercial gain out of it. I want to find one customer. It's here really about a different purpose. So I love the thing about social capital, social thinking. I think we can do good as a community as well, helping others to benefit this community in its broadest sense, skills, capabilities, networks, experiences. And the other end, I think, yeah, there is also what you can call commercial potential in doing something similar, let's say, for a customer that is really a need for outside-in perspective. So I see that potential as well. So there I agree with Robert, but it's a different type of ball game.
Yeah, and even out with that company not being present, I'm finding that there's like a small group of people, maybe 1, 2, or 3 people that want to take the concept that comes from one of these and wants to move it forward, or just basically to shepherd it into a different phase, whether that's a prototype, like actually building upon it, continuing it on. It follows in line with what Lee Duncan did after the pilot and kept going one of his design sprint prototypes. And I think it was almost a year later, ended up being something that their company adopted and put into the blockchain. So you never know where those kind of things go, but it usually, if it wants to live on, there's an owner that kind of takes it forward and moves it along.
Yeah, so that might be an maybe more a general question about. There's so much intellect, I would almost say, and energy mobilized in an event like this, not just for one sprint, but for the 15 or 16 that you have helped to organize in total. That you would wonder if it all stays on the shelf almost, or in the digital closet. Say that would be a shame. So I think these events, these showcases, they help. But it will be interesting to see how actually we can unlock the potential of all the solutions and thinking that has been activated in this event, or these events, how you could unlock that potential to the next level. I have no opinion how to do that, but that's more a question, or maybe a design challenge that we could take on in parallel. Just I think one of the teams did, I think Descartes, who looked at, let's say, how is there a life after the design sprint, how to mobilize the knowledge, the experiences, the tools, the solutions to the next level and share that broader. That's a kind of a thinking about, also from a content point of view, how to offer almost all the output of all these teams. I would almost say to the marketplace out there. And if there's someone that wants to make a next step, how to tip in or how to own it as a next step, for instance.
We've had 2 major events that basically give evidence and credence to the fact that there needs to be a third phase to this, or a next phase after the event. Something that it's instructional, similar to how Sandyland does the templates, but giving people the options of maybe going down Alberto Savoya's path of doing a prototype, or doing an iteration sprint like what Sandy had done for the referral network, as kind of to validate like what their original idea was. But allowing this maybe a subset of the people that originally worked on the idea to move it forward, whereas other people will drop off, go back to their lives, do what they need to, and so on. So I think it's got to be a necessary part of the next one. It'll be iterating on like what that process is with people that have gone through this, like a core group of people that are closer to the GVDS than others, and then testing it out and seeing what happens in the spring. I did have one quick question, and that's talent sprint related, Heron. When I started, as we were having the dialogue about what Joris was saying about how this process helps to bring people in and have them understand how to work in a virtual design sprint space, but also to showcase what they can do. When you were thinking of the talent sprint originally, did you have a particular vertical or a particular age bracket, or was the talent sprint wide open in terms of like its demographic on who it could work with?
I think what the talent sprint tries to do as a concept is to offer a platform or a stage for professionals, and in my view, all professionals, to take the stage by doing what they're good at, collaborate, showcase their skills and capabilities. Sometimes it's only the prototyping, sometimes it's only the facilitation, but demonstrate that in a more open way to peers and to maybe potential hiring organizations. To me, that is not exclusive to senior professionals at all. I think this can relate to any stage in your career journey, including maybe school graduates that, let's say, are the first stage of how to present myself in the job market and to potential employers. So I was in conversation with a college here in the Netherlands, for instance, as an example, to see how we could organize a GVDS event for them, only for, let's say, soon to graduate business and technology professionals, and participate in it, which they were eager for, but they couldn't fit it into their curriculum. But I think in that sense, I don't think it's only related to experienced professionals, 5, 10, 15 years of tenure in the industry. I think it can be to young professionals I think everybody is challenged in his career by how to best present what he or she is capable of doing, what drives a person, and how he or she would like to activate that in his professional time and career with an organization that he or she wants to feel connected to. So I think a design sprint or a co-creative workshop, or what we call then the talent sprint as the facilitating shell around it, is seeking to create that opportunity for professionals.
Yeah. Sandy had a question that she posted up. Sandy Lamb, the person who designed the template that we're looking at in Mural, asked a question about, what about when we sign up, we can sign up for a design sprint quarter team, something that we promise each other to have a commitment that we will continue after the week of the design sprint to move the solution forward. I wonder if that question is better suited towards the end of the sprint rather than at the very beginning, because you don't know if you're going to really gel with the team that you've been assigned to, nor you're not going to really know what the results of the test are, whether or not it's valid to move it forward. But I do agree with her that there should be something where it's an option given to the team at the time that they finish up their sprint, where you don't have to start right away, but maybe there's a period of resting and kind of going that route, so that they give some time to think about it and see where it goes. And what do you think, Hero?
Well, on one hand, it's nice to use the momentum that is being created in a certain month or in a week and to continue that. I fully support also the thinking that Sandy maybe has in terms of, I don't want to say cool down period, but getting back to reality a little bit again, and based on understanding how to balance personal time, professional time, and maybe GVDS follow-up time again after 2-3 weeks, and then maybe sign up again in a kind of an in-between exercise, a follow-up iteration sprint, however you want to frame that. So maybe some breathing time between the end of a GVDS sprint and then the follow-up could be welcome by some people. And yes, there will be people that have to reset their priorities and say, I'm going back to work and focus on my family. I've learned enough and I gained a lot. Others will say, I see part of a continuous journey and I want to contribute to it. And in 3 or 4 weeks time from now, I'm there again, even in a slightly different framed, facilitated manner.
Yeah, it could be something where if you look at the the core kind of engagement, but then you can extend it out and say like, okay, if what you experience is really appealing, then you have these options available to you. So Joris and Aaron, we're about 8 minutes over, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. You've been really gracious with kind of, taking time out on a Friday to basically present your work with not only with representing your team, but showcasing what the solution was. I guess the last question I have for the both of you is there any plans by any team members for moving this forward in a meaningful way, similar to what Sandy was talking about, where the solution is sort of somebody that shepherds it into a next phase?
For me personally, like it's experience, the GVDS experience has done, I don't have to push forward the prototype or the ID. But it would be nice to stay in touch with the GVDS community. I'm definitely interested in participating again and to stay connected to everybody.
Yeah, I think that was the impression of many of the team members. Of course, we have made an inventory of what could be potential next steps, but it hasn't really concluded to let's pick up the ball in 2 weeks from now and organize an iteration sprint or something like that. So I think we have to see how, also in the context of your previous questions and what Sandy brought to the table, what the energy level is, the motivation and the passion to bring this specific idea next step further. But it doesn't mean that maybe there are a few other members of the GVDS community say, hey, I'm inspired by this and I want to team up to see how we can bring it to a next level prototyping or experience. And that could also be the approach by having an open enrollment again on a follow-up sprint based on this topic and test results. So we have to see. The future will tell.
Yeah, true.
And I would like to take the last minutes to thank you, Robert, for organizing the GVDS. Amazing what you set up.
Mhm.
And Jeroen, thank you for the advisory role you took in the team. It was very beneficial, and you did a great job. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Well, it's always nice to get compliments.
You're welcome, Joris. I'm glad that you got some value out of this and you enjoyed it. So if you haven't done so already, do submit feedback and be as critical as you like, or idealistic in terms of like what you'd like to see in the spring, because that'll help me orient how I kind of put my efforts. So
yeah, if I have feedback coming up coming days in my head when I'm under the shower, for example, I'll share it all with you.
If you, the next time you have your haircut where you're gonna get, oh, I'm gonna get ready for like another 3 months. If you're sitting there just kind of pondering your thoughts, something comes up, and just get on your mobile phone and like text me later on and let me know.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
I'll do.
All right, you two. Thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for all of the work that you put into this. I would do a group shot, but for posterity purposes, I'll just basically say, okay, we can.
That's fine.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, Robert, thank you very much. Sleep well, and talk to you guys later.
Okay, thanks again, guys.
All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.